Like, what are the benefits to you of being a good or great manager? Strengthening the business, and that could be from the perspective of the business owner, or or a staff member who is looking to take on a more prominent role, opening up career opportunities, having a desire, just an innate desire to lead others or to develop others. So becoming a manager, it helps you become more proficient at that. Some people are just wired where they want to acquire a new skill. So then there are plenty of skills found within what you learn to be a manager. Pride could be one. I mean, if you're in a management position and maybe that's not what you grew up hoping to be, but you're just the type of person who you want to excel regardless of the position that you're in. Maybe it's just pride that's driving you. Maybe that's why you want to be proficient. And then maybe it's just to keep your job. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that either. It's maybe you're here because that's just what you were told that you have to do. That's perfectly fine. From my perspective, I think it's probably more important that you recognize that that's what it is. But regardless, you're still going to be able to take what you learn here, and this should help you develop and develop along that path. All of these things, and I'm sure we could go through and come up with a lot more than that. But all of those things are really important. There are also, though, probably some other things that you could do other than being a good manager to accomplish them. So it's my opinion that what you learn when you learn how to manage outweighs all those other options, though. I think that learning how to manage is something that you can use to change your course immediately. And it can give you a great deal more control over your path. And that's either as an employee or a business owner. I think what you learn when you learn how to manage effectively transfers throughout your entire life and career as much as anything else that I'm aware of. And learning to manage only stands to magnify anything else that you're going to learn how to do. So let me talk to you about why I think that it's such a big deal. Most of you have seen our five-stage coaching partner journey that we've created. And if you haven't, that's fine. It's not a big deal. We're going to cover what you need to know right here. The CP journey, which is what we call it, goes through the life cycle of a business from its inception to maturity. And at each stage, there are common elements that we believe that all businesses go through, and that most of them are going to go through in a pretty similar sequence. Each of the stages, 1 through 5, has certain obstacles or growing pains, competencies, resources that it needs to acquire, and different markers of success at each stage. And if you think about it, it's a lot like a video game with the stages. So the hero meets an obstacle or a challenge. The hero has to learn or acquire something to conquer the challenge. When they do, he or she, the hero, is on to the next one. I won't go so far as to say that you level up as you're going through this journey, because I don't want to give the sense that the journey is a checklist. I promise you it doesn't work like that. But I will say that each of the skills, each of the competencies, each of the resources that you acquire, they're all necessary for the hero to ever fully develop. And so you might be able to think about it like your fitness clients and the progressions in their programs. Like, they don't get to check off an exercise and progress forward because they demonstrated it one time. And you definitely don't let them skip over levels of progressions. So the reason that I'm showing you all this, because from my experience, both in running our businesses and in working with other business owners inside and outside of fitness, there's one obstacle that stands out as the biggest and baddest for the business owners and for staff members. And it sits right in the middle of this journey, and it affects the owners and the staff members alike. And it can bring business growth to an immediate stop or worse. And even when I've seen people figure it out and get it solved, it takes a really long time. And it's management, and it starts with the first hire. That's typically in the CP journey here in stage 2, but not always. And when you're in stage 2, the pains from lack of managing are relatively minor. Or you could say that in stage 2, everything hurts, so you don't really know where the pain's coming from. but they don't. The pain from the lack of managing doesn't really start to bubble up and become clear until you start moving into stage 3. And that's actually what prompts some of the I've got to get systems talk that you hear in stage 3. That's actually a lot of times is a misdiagnosis. So there's incompleteness or a lack of accountability or lack of clarity, which stems from not managing, that gets blamed on not having a system. So we try to create a clearer, more thorough checklist to have people go through. And then we realized that wasn't quite it either. And then the need for management skills spills over into the stage 4, which is where it's eventually mastered. So to give you an idea, like why I think that it's so critical, just imagine if no business were capable of managing effectively. That would mean they would all be owner-operators, one-man shows, with a few exceptions of the knuckleheads who just kept hiring, kept managing poorly, grinding themselves and the potentially good employees down until somebody caves. I'm not an economist, so I can't say that our economy would flatline, but I can say that the world would suck. That would just, that's just a hard one to wrap your head around. So it's critical, like the ability to manage, the skills that go into managing are, that's kind of what lets us grow businesses exponentially rather than having to like one-off things or the owner operator being the only person who can handle production. So let me tell you a little bit about this, why it turns into such a big, bad, drawn-out lesson. Most of us started our businesses. We started them with very little business experience or background. From stage 1 to whatever stage in the journey we got to, there was always one common factor in play, and that's that we got to put our hands on production. We were doers. And even as we worked through obstacles, acquired skills, acquired competencies, we still had to produce. And we didn't even consider that not being the way that it would always be. It was like breathing. You don't even know that it's happening. And then when you do figure out that it's happening, it's not like you sit around and think about trying to stop it. You just accept it. It is. But you see, looking at the CP journey, so right there in stage 3, where the value changes to business owner, that's when you first start really thinking about a business that produces in ways other than like through your hands or your production. And then somehow, some way, you got to get from there to where it says results through others in stage 4. And that's such a huge leap for a couple of reasons. One, because that's really the first time that we've needed to, much less been able to, not be the producer. And 2, because learning to manage isn't something that just one person has to absorb for the business to be forever changed. Managing is something that for it to stick, it's going to have to become part of the culture. And if you think about it, it always involves at least 2 roles, right? So if you don't, there's a manager and then there's the report. If there aren't multiple parties, then there's really not any management to be done. And so for every new role, every new position that comes into a business, it adds to the dynamic need for management. And so it's I guess that's kind of going back to why that's the linchpin, or the learning to manage can be the inflection point in the CP journey, when a business goes from only being able to produce the amount that one person can produce to suddenly being able to, well, maybe not suddenly, from being able to produce the amounts that many people can produce.